Inside the Tactical Operations Center at Firebase Lightning, the air feels heavy with diesel and metal. Maps streaked with grease pencil cover the walls, while satellite imagery curls at the corners. Encrypted radios hiss beside a generator that never sleeps. Master Sergeant Cole Redding orders a detain. He is the team sergeant. MOS 18Z. For a 12-man, Operational Detachment Alpha in 5th Special Forces Group Airborne. Facing him is Captain Dana Price. On authorized orders, to evaluate and update close-quarters battle training. Redding loops paracord at her throat and pulls. The motion is fast. Wrong. And a clear violation of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. A base security hold allows restraint, not strangulation. Dana steadies her breathing through her nose and keeps her chin tucked. She tracks exits, angles, and fields of fire the way a teacher scans a classroom. Her wrists burn under the ties, but her eyes stay on the doorways. The radios chatter with partial call signs and clipped reports. A private generator cough rides the floor in rhythm like a low drum. Dust floats in the light as the room tightens around one bad decision. A message hours earlier quietly primed the mistake. It warned of a female infiltrator inbound with forged papers. It landed on the one nerve Redding had never healed. Dana keeps her voice level and asks for a proper check when the immediate threat passes. Verification should run through a common access card on the secure network. Not rough hands. Redding draws a breath that trembles at the edges. Eli Cross shifts near the door and looks from the paracord to the maps. The room holds still for a heartbeat on the edge of consequences. Somewhere outside, a sound begins to build like gravel under a sheet of tin. The radios stretch thin, and every eye lifts. The first impact is a breath away. 4 hours earlier, Captain Dana Price stepped off an authorized transport at Firebase Lightning with orders sealed and reviewed. The ramp smelled like diesel and hot metal as a line of radios clattered from the flight line to the gate. Her mission was simple and serious. She would evaluate and update close-quarters battle procedures for forward-deployed teams working in tight compounds and alleyways. Reception moved by the book. She presented identification, scanned her common access card, and expected verification through the secure network on SIPR before any access beyond the entry control point. Inside the Tactical Operations Center, the generator hummed like a steady drum. Maps wore fresh grease pencil marks while satellite imagery pinned angles of approach and dead space. An anonymous warning had arrived before she did. It claimed a female infiltrator was inbound with fabricated credentials and urged immediate action. Master Sergeant Cole Redding read the message under pressure and saw risk everywhere. He ordered a hard detain that pushed past protocol and mistook speed for certainty. The security hold itself stayed within a familiar frame at first. Hands were searched. A sidearm was removed from a nearby holster, and a magazine was cleared from a rifle sitting on a rack. Then the line was crossed. Paracord rose where a simple restraint would have been enough. A move that violated the Uniform Code of Military Justice and ignored the systems built for verification. Staff Sergeant Eli Cross watched Dana breathe through her nose and set her shoulders low. Her posture stayed balanced and calm. The same quiet professionalism he remembered from training mats years earlier. He noted the exits, the angles, and the way she tracked fields of fire without speaking. Nothing about her felt like a pretender trying to bluff her way into the heart of a base. The room pressed tighter as radio chatter ticked up, and a report of movement came from the perimeter. Redding pushed for rough verification while adrenaline washed detail off the edges of his judgment. Eli prepared to intervene with a call for proper checks on SIPR, using the common access card already in the system. The generator throbbed. The diesel hung heavy, and the tension climbed toward a hard break. Staff Sergeant Eli Cross watches Captain Dana Price with the patience of a range coach. Her breathing runs in a clean 3 count. In, through the nose, and out slow. Her forearms hang loose, and her eyes track doorways and fields of fire without hurry. The Tactical Operations Center smells like diesel and warm paint. A generator hums steady, while encrypted radios clatter with partial call signs and static. Eli notes how she shifts her stance to keep balance without showing threat. He sees the small Kia tattoo on her wrist when the tie bites at her skin. It is quiet and exact. A marker that carries Command Sergeant Major Thomas Price into every room she enters. The detail snaps a door open in his head. 5 years earlier, at Fort Liberty, she taught the combatives block for special operations candidates. She threw Eli clean and safe, set him down, and made him do the movement again until his base and hip placement held. She corrected his grip, his posture, and his timing with a steady voice. By the second week, the class called her Mother. Not as a joke, but as a line of respect. She pushed hard and protected harder. Made them better without burning them down. Eli carried that lesson into every room with a loaded magazine and a clear head. The present tightens around him, with the hum of machines and the smell of dust. A sidearm rides in a nearby holster while rifles rest in a rack. And nothing about her feels careless or fake. He knows the difference between fear and focus. And he is looking at focus. Eli thinks through the chain of command and the right way to fix this. Verification needs a common access card and the secure network on SIPR. Not rough hands or shortcuts that break trust. Biometrics do not spill full files. And the unit should not pretend they do. He feels the pressure of time and decides to move. He will call for proper checks and force the room back to procedure. His boot lifts, and he takes the first step forward. Staff Sergeant Eli Cross steps forward and steadies his breath as the Tactical Operations Center narrows around him. The generator hums. Radios clatter. And maps carry fresh grease pencil lines. He reaches the cyber terminal that sits behind the TOC desk. He inserts his common access card and authenticates with authorized permissions. The screen pulls the mission data needed to validate Captain Dana Price and her orders. Not a full personnel file. Access control and audit logs track every step for the Operational Detachment Alpha and higher headquarters. The check confirms what matters on a need-to-know basis. Rank shows Captain. Assignment shows Subject Matter Expert for Combatives and Close Quarters, Battle Supporting United States Army Special Operations Command, Joint Special Operations Command, and Naval Special Warfare. A Ranger tab is recorded, along with a Bronze Star medal with V device, with classified details protected. Master Sergeant Cole Redding reads the result and feels the boundaries he crossed under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. He lowers his hands, resets his posture as the team sergeant, and returns to disciplined control of his ODA. Dana keeps her voice even, puts base security first, and states that a formal report will follow. Sidearms sit in holsters, and magazines rest in rifles at the rack, untouched for the moment. The room holds to procedure, while the generator beats a steady line through the floor, and the radios stitch call signs to sectors. Grease pencil marks glow under the lamps like lanes on a range. The verification completes, and the cursor stops blinking. Redding starts issuing clean, short tasks, while Cross clears the terminal and steps back into position. The air tightens into a hard pause, as if the compound itself is taking a breath before the next test. The first mortar round hits like a hammer and shears a hole in the Tactical Operations Center wall. The shockwave slams the room. Radios scream, and lights stutter as concrete dust blooms into the air. Shards and shrapnel skip across the floor and bite into map boards. Captain Dana Price drops low behind a steel desk and slides to cover. Master Sergeant Cole Redding shouts sectors and accountability, fighting the chaos back into lanes. Bodies move to concealment as the generator hum turns into a hard vibration underfoot. Dana sprints to the weapons rack and takes an M4, a 1 carbine. She performs a quick press check, sees brass, rides the bolt forward, and sets the selector on semi. She seats the magazine with a firm palm and thumbs the forward assist as a habit check. Outside, trained fire starts to stitch the perimeter. AK pattern rifles engage from the south, deliberate and steady. 2 machine gun positions to the east. PKM class. Throw suppressive fire that rakes the berm and chews sandbags. Movement flows through the northern tree line in disciplined bounds. 2-man teams leapfrog. One element covers while the other moves. It is clean bounding Overwatch that aims to fix the defenders and roll a flank. Inside the hole, the smell of diesel and propellant mixes with dust and sweat. Empty brass clatters and skitters at boot level as shooters control rates and keep muzzles at safe angles. Redding pushes security to the east while counting heads and ammunition. Dana edges to the shattered doorway and uses the frame as cover. She reads muzzle flashes, listens for rhythm changes, and marks target reference points on the map in her head. Her breathing settles into a steady 2 count. She calls quick sector cues to the nearest riflemen and checks their fields of fire. Short controlled bursts answer the pressure without wasting rounds. The noise evens out into a pattern the team can work. Redding nods from the far side as accountability snaps tight. Dana raises a hand for timing and looks to the south. Then east. Then north. The coordinated response is set on her next breath. Captain Dana Price reads the fight like a range diagram. She points sectors, routes, and cover with quick hand signals. Then requests Master Sergeant Cole Redding to approve and execute. Her voice stays low and steady as she frames target reference points tied to landmarks on the berm. Redding nods once and takes the eastern perimeter with most of the operational detachment Alpha. He resets fields of fire, checks ammunition states, and pushes security to close dead space near a collapsed barrier. His posture settles the line and turns scattered shooters into a team again. Dana commits to hold the north and manage timing. She controls rates with selector on semi and short controlled bursts, keeping angles clean across doorways and broken wall. Magazines ride secure while a sidearm stays holstered and forgotten unless the rifle fails. She directs Staff Sergeant Eli Cross to take 3 soldiers down the drainage ditch that runs parallel to the fence. The ditch offers concealment and a shallow curve that masks movement from the eastern machine guns. Cross confirms hand signals, checks, spacing, and briefs a bound by element to close and suppress. Radio brevity stays tight and plain. Cross uses short calls to report position, mark a halt, and request the initiating signal. Dana adjusts shooters behind her to cover lanes that Cross will vacate, avoiding fratricide and keeping overlapping sectors honest. She counts down on the net, and with her hand, tying the push to a simple cue, her element will spike suppression for 3 breaths, while Cross crawls to a firing point that looks into the PKM arc. Redding mirrors the rhythm from the east so no gap opens in the line. The plan begins to move bodies instead of adrenaline. Cross slips into the ditch with his element, elbows and knees in the mud, rifles low against the bank. Dana rides the sight picture, breath steady, and waits to light the signal that will flip the momentum. Captain Dana Price reaches the northern position and drops beside 3 pinned soldiers. Sergeant Harwell bleeds hard from shoulder shrapnel that soaks his sleeve. Dana sweeps for the source and sees bright arterial spurts. She applies tactical combat casualty care without drama. The bleeding line is unclear, so she places a tourniquet high and tight on the upper arm. She tightens the windlass until the bleeding stops, secures it, and marks the time. She checks airway, breathing, and circulation, then scans for more threats. Harwell grips the dirt and steadies as color returns. Dana shifts him lower behind cover and sets a watcher. She turns to the fight. 2 rifles remain in action and she assigns sectors left and right. She takes the center lane herself and kneels behind a broken wall. Selector on semi. Short controlled bursts. Proper sight picture and clean trigger press that lives in the first pad of her finger. Target handoffs come fast when a teammate owns the angle. She calls hold and shift, left 5 in plain terms. The line breathes in small moves that keep heads low and muzzles honest. The enemy works the tree line with discipline. Two-man teams practice bounding Overwatch, as one element covers and the other moves. AK pattern rifles speak in short strings that search for a flank. Propellant burns the air and dust dries the mouth. Hot brass taps her forearm and falls into the rubble. A sidearm rides in a nearby holster as insurance if the rifle fails. She manages ammunition like a metronome. Partial magazines go front left and full magazines ride to the rear. A quick tap rack clears a sluggish feed and the sight comes back to the notch. She shifts position before the enemy can walk rounds onto the wall. A low two-step to the next corner resets her angles and opens dead space for her partner. The movement keeps them from being fixed. The northern push begins to fray after multiple casualties. Silhouettes bend under the weight of wounded and disappear into the trees. Dana breathes in a slow 2 count and scans for a follow-on push. She calls a status check and prepares to shift support to the east. The rifles around her settle into guard rates while she reads the ground. The next piece of the plan starts in her head before it reaches the net. Captain Dana Price reaches the western position and drops beside 2 casualties. Specialist Aaron Dunn lies gasping with an open chest wound just below his plate carrier. She exposes the site and wipes quickly with a gauze pad. A vented chest seal goes over the entry wound with firm, even pressure. She rolls Dunn slightly to check the back. A second vented seal covers the exit wound and restores a one-way path for air. Airway, breathing, and circulation get a fast reassessment. She watches for tension signs like worsening breathing, gray lips, and fading response. If tension builds, she is ready for needle decompression. The plan is a 14-gauge needle at the 4th or 5th intercostal space at the anterior axillary line. She shifts to Staff Sergeant Gabriel Reyes with a thigh gunshot wound. Combat gauze packs the channel while her other hand keeps direct pressure. A pressure dressing follows to lock the hemostatic work in place. She notes the time and treatment on her glove for the handoff. Nearby shooters keep selector on semi and use short controlled bursts. Sidearms stay holstered and magazines are checked between lulls to manage ammunition. On the radio, a 9-line medevac is sent and a missed report follows. Friendlies, target reference points, and movement are deconflicted in plain, tight language. No 18D medic is on scene yet. So Dana bridges care. She guides breathing checks, confirms distal pulse, and watches both patients for change. Master Sergeant Cole Redding slides in beside Reyes and takes over pressure. Dana gives clear instructions to maintain force and to not release for any reason. She scans the lane and listens for inbound rotors and ground vehicles. The fight still presses the wire, but the care is steady and controlled. Master Sergeant Cole Redding moves from shock to muscle memory and crosses open ground under fire. He slides in beside Staff Sergeant Gabriel Reyes and takes over firm direct pressure exactly as Captain Dana Price instructs. He hands the casualty site to the next available shooter and sprints back east. Radio traffic tightens as he sets priorities of work and reallocates sectors. He confirms ammunition checks, water, and security at the vulnerable corner. Short, calm calls replace the earlier noise and the line begins to hold. Rotors build on the horizon and the quick reaction force calls inbound. An AH-64 Apache checks in overhead with a qualified controller on the team. The talk on is brief and clean, with a Type 2 close air support call that deconflicts friendlies and target reference points. Net discipline holds with calm brevity and positive identification. Restrictions are clear on direction of fire, danger areas, and no fire lines. Every shooter keeps selector on semi and controls bursts to conserve magazines. Dana scans the tree line and cues suppression for a 3-count to mask movement. Staff Sergeant Eli Cross completes his crawl in the drainage ditch and angles on the machine gun threats. His element opens from cover and forces the PKM crews to duck out of their arcs. Ground and air pressure stack into a steady squeeze. The attackers break contact and peel back toward the trees, leaving drag marks and a rifle on the berm. The berm breathes again as dust settles over spent brass. Redding's voice is steady as he confirms casualty status, ammunition, and security. He moves post by post, checks hands, and resets overlapping fields of fire. Dana keeps eyes north for a second wave and listens for the inbound medevac at 2:30 p.m. First light slides over the berm and turns the dust pale gold. The fight is over and the base settles into a tense calm. Medics move the perimeter with quiet hands and clipped notes. Captain Dana Price sits on an ammo crate with her helmet off. Her hands shake as the adrenaline fades. The bruising at her neck carries the shape of a bad choice. A medic checks her airway and documents tenderness along the neck. Post-event protocol calls for a medical evaluation for airway concerns and possible cervical spine issues. She nods and agrees to be seen once the scene is stable. Master Sergeant Cole Redding walks over and stops a few feet away. He lowers himself beside the crate without speaking. The generator hum fills the space they do not rush to fill. His story arrives in low sentences that feel worn smooth. His sister Megan had been a young army medic in Iraq for only a few days. A rocket took her in the night and left a gap he could not close. Grief hardened into bias and called itself wisdom. He admits that fear, dressed up as protection, had steered his judgment. The admission lands between them and stays there. Dana keeps her voice even and human. She speaks of Command Sergeant Major Thomas Price, who was killed in action, and the funeral at Arlington. She repeats the private promise she made to train soldiers to survive and stay decent. She draws a clear line without anger. What happened in the Tactical Operations Center meets the elements of assault under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Accountability will follow once security is complete and reports are submitted through the chain of command. They sit together and let the pauses breathe. Forgiveness does not erase harm. It stops harm from owning the future. Redding steadies as a leader and begins to look like himself again. He confirms with medics that transport is ready if needed. He stands and tells the nearest team leader to continue reset tasks. Dana watches the sun clear the shattered wall. She chooses to move forward without becoming bitter. The base exhales, and the day begins at 7:15 a.m. Colonel Matthew Reeves arrives to conduct an AR-15-6 after-action investigation. He steps into the Tactical Operations Center and asks for the logbooks and camera archive. The room is quiet and steady. He reviews video of the detention and the later contact. He notes bruising on Captain Dana Price's neck and abrasions on her wrists. A medic's photographs are added to the record. Sworn statements are collected from the Operational Detachment Alpha. Each statement is read back for accuracy and signed. Reeves preserves the originals and secures copies. System logs confirm verification on SIPR using a common access card. Timestamps also show when the Quick Reaction Force checked in and when aircraft arrived. Audit trails are intact. The Uniform Code of Military Justice applies to what happened in the Tactical Operations Center. Reeves records that Master Sergeant Cole Redding's actions meet the elements of assault. He documents aggravating and mitigating factors. If the matter is referred to trial, the path is clear. Charges would be preferred, followed by an Article 32 preliminary hearing before court-martial. The command could also use Article 15 non-judicial punishment or administrative action. Dana requests a private meeting with Reeves. She states that accountability is required and non-negotiable. She recommends mandated counseling, leadership retraining, close supervision, and a formal reprimand. Her words do not erase harm. They aim to prevent future harm inside the unit culture. She makes the case in calm, plain language. Reeves weighs the record and the conduct under fire. He notes the victim's recommendation and the unit's performance during the attack. He writes observations on command, climate, and training gaps. He prepares findings and recommendations for the commanding general. Disposition will rest with the command while security and recovery continue on the ground. The process moves forward with dignity and care. Command decisions arrive with a clear tone. Master Sergeant Cole Redding completes mandated counseling and leadership retraining. He serves under close supervision and accepts the limits set by the chain of command. He does not return to a field team sergeant role. Instead, he channels experience into a peer support group for soldiers processing grief and loss. Attendance grows as word moves through the unit. The anonymous message is traced to a foreign intelligence effort designed to seed distrust inside special operations. The vector is neutralized without exposing classified methods or sources. The lesson is logged and pushed across the network. Specialist Aaron Dunn works through rehab and strength checks. Staff Sergeant Gabriel Reyes clears milestones and regains range of motion. The medics document progress and schedule follow-ups. A letter arrives for Captain Dana Price in a plain envelope. Dunn writes why the students called her mother. She pushed them hard, and she kept them safe. What lasts is simple and hard to teach. Competence under pressure saved lives in the wire. Empathy reshaped the culture, and accountability changed behavior. Life at the firebase settles back into routine. Guards rotate on time. Radios stay tight. And training blocks fill the calendar. The unit resets security with quiet focus. Dana prepares to rotate back to Fort Liberty. She updates lesson plans for close quarters battle and folds new observations into the next class. The work continues without fanfare. There is no soundtrack beyond a generator and distant traffic. People heal. Procedures refine. And standards hold. The day clicks toward 2:30 p.m. as another patrol steps off. 6 months later, at Fort Liberty, Captain Dana Price steps onto the mat. A new class of special operations candidates lines the edge in quiet rows. Morning begins with gear checks and safety briefs that feel practiced and real. Dana inspects gloves, mouth guards, and taped fingers before anyone moves. They start with breakfalls to protect heads and ribs. She drills base and hip movement until stances hold without wobble. Controlled throws follow with partners matched by size and experience. Dana shows how to land, frame, and reset without ego. Close quarters battle walk, throughs fill the next block. Angles, muzzle awareness, and offline steps are repeated with rifles on, safe and slings tight. A young second lieutenant lingers after the final bow. She asks how Dana found the strength to help the man who hurt her. Dana touches the small Kia tattoo that honors Command Sergeant Major Thomas Price. She speaks about the promise at Arlington to train warriors who protect one another and stay human under pressure. She explains that forgiveness did not erase the wrong. It kept the wrong from shaping the future of the unit and the lives inside it. Standards and boundaries close the day. Accuracy, restraint, and accountability are presented as part of the job, not options. She reminds them that magazine is the correct word and clip is not. She reminds them that calm beats speed when people are at risk. The class files out to hydrate and log notes. Dana stacks pads, disinfects mats, and checks tomorrow's lesson plan. Outside, the post settles into evening. Watchstanders take posts in quiet corners of the world. Light fades across the parade field and the motor pool. The hum of distant traffic replaces the noise of the gym. Dana locks the room and breathes a steady 2 count. Calm, pride, and steady purpose ride with her into the hallway. If this story moved you, join the conversation. Comment the word mother if a mentor once pushed you and kept you safe. Like, subscribe, and share with a friend who serves or trains others. Remember 3 takeaways that stick. competence under fire, accountability with empathy, and healing after grief. Tag a mentor and thank them today. And come back soon for another true story about leadership and calm under pressure. We will keep it human and respectful. Team Sergeant 18Z on an ODA keeps CQB honest at Fort Liberty with SIPR Common Access Card checks. AR 15 to 6 notes. And the court-martial process alongside a Bronze Star Medal with V device. Under fire. Selector on semi. Magazine. Not. Clip. M4. A1 against AK. Pattern. Care means a vented chest seal. Combat goes. A tourniquet. And needle decompression with a 14 gauge at the 4th or 5th intercostal space at the anterior axillary line, as an AH-64 Apache checks in for a Type 2 close air support talk on. 3 concise title cards fit the tone. Who sent you the captain? They doubted, saved the base. Tied in the TOC, she led the fight and changed a leader. And she trained half of special ops, then saved them under fire. Thumbnail shows loosened paracord at Dana Price's neck at sunrise. Who sent you above Apache? Lower third, Firebase Lightning.